On September the 3rd of 1939, France declared war on Germany, joining Britain after Germany had invaded Poland. By June the 25th of 1940, France surrendered to Germany, and this caused a cleaving of France between the Axis-aligned Régime de Vichy, headed by Marshal Philippe Petain, and France Libre, headed by General Charles de Gaulle. Both of these governments would see fighting in the Pacific War. In the Pacific, the French colonies of New Caledonia, the New Hebrides, and French Polynesia joined Free France by summer of 1940. But France's largest colony, French Indochina, remained under Vichy control and became the first target of Japanese expansion in 1940. The Empire of Japan sought to eliminate all the points of entry for war materials to China, and the Kunming-Haiphong Railway was one of China's last lifelines. Hey everyone, I just wanted to let you know I now have a Patreon account found at www.patreon.com/thepacificwarchannel. Over there you can find exclusive Patreon episodes and podcasts based on suggestions from patrons, and other benefits like early access to all of my content, live hangouts, your name in the end credits, and much, much more, so please go check it out. French Indochina was rich in oil and rubber, and a necessary stepping stone for Japan's Nanshin-ron strategy. When France surrendered to Germany, Japan took advantage of her defeat, offering an ultimatum to the Governor-General of Indochina, Georges Katsu, demanding a closure of supply routes to China and to allow Japanese forces to be stationed in parts of northern French Indochina. Katsu was forced to comply, and by the end of June, Japanese were crossing the border as Katsu was replaced with Admiral Jean de Coup. The Japanese gave another ultimatum, now demanding the admission of their forces to travel through French Indochina. Admiral de Coup, alongside General Jules-Antoine Bourel, advised defending the colony with 49,000 troops they had on hand. The Vichy government pleaded with Germany for help to intervene, but they did nothing. While negotiations were still ongoing, Lieutenant General Ikito Nakimura sent forces of the 5th IJ Division towards Dongdang on September the 22nd, causing a firefight. The French position at Langsong was quickly surrounded and forced to surrender by the 25th. On the 24th, IJN carriers launched aircraft from the Gulf of Tonkin to raid French positions along the coast, who were attempting to fire upon the landing vessels. On the 26th, Japanese forces landed ashore at Dongtak as aircraft bombed Haiphong, and quickly French Indochina was occupied in full. On September the 27th, Japan signed the Tripartite Pact, officially joining the Axis, leaving an awkward Vichy colonial government in charge of French Indochina on friendly terms with Japan. Japan was not France's only worry in the East. Lulled by the subservient behavior of France towards Japan, Plaque Bon-Sancram decided to seize the opportunity to regain territory lost during the Franco-Siamese War of 1893. Beginning in January of 1941, border skirmishes erupted along the Mekong frontier as the Royal Thai Air Force bombed Phnom Penh, Sisophon, Battambang, and Vientiane. Armée de l'Air retaliated but was less effective. On January the 5th, the French launched an offensive against Aranyaprathet, as the Burapa and Isan armies launched offensives against Laos and Cambodia. Laos was quickly overrun, while Cambodia offered more resistance. By mid-January, the French launched a large counterattack against Yangdam Kum and Phum Prev in Cambodia, but would be forced to withdraw soon after. Admiral de Coup then launched all available naval forces to surprise attack the Thai Navy while they were anchored at Ko Chang Island. The battle for Ko Chang Island saw a tactical victory for France, with the destruction of 2 Thai gunboats, the grounding of a coastal defense ship, and the deaths of 36 Thai. On the 24th, the Thai launched an air raid against Angkor using B-10 medium bombers of the 50th Thai Bomber Squadron with 13 Hawk 75 fighter escorts. But by the 31st, the Japanese forced both nations to sign a ceasefire. France was forced to cede numerous provinces from Cambodia and Laos to Thailand. Until 1943, the Japanese government had only recognized the Vichy government as legitimate and chose not to declare war on the Free French forces in Asia and respected the sovereignty of their territories in Asia, such as the concession at Guangzhouwan. Japan had established an exclusion zone around the concession, but years of the NRA soldiers using the concession to hide from the Japanese forces and Chiang Kai-shek's official recognition of Free France's authority over it at the Casablanca Conference of 1943 pushed Japan to invade it. Lieutenant General Sakai Takashi ordered 500 Japanese troops of the 24th Army to invade the concession, prompting the Free French officials to declare Guangzhouwan an open city, and the Japanese occupied it for the rest of the war. France held multiple islands in the Pacific that became useful to the Allies during the Pacific War. In September of 1940, New Caledonia joined Free France, and in March of 1942, an agreement was made between Free France and the United States to let them build a naval base at Noumea. That base became instrumental and would allow for large convoys to depart to Guadalcanal, where the turning point of the Pacific War would occur. Likewise, Espirtu Santo, part of the Anglo-French New Hybrids, would also host a U.S. naval base for the war. French Polynesia also joined Free France, and islands like Bora Bora would host an American South Pacific military supply base, oil depot, airstrip, and seaplane base. While Japan occupied French Indochina for almost the entire Pacific War, in October of 1943, General de Gaulle created on paper le Corps Expéditionnaire Français en Extrême-Orient. Their purpose was to liberate French Indochina from Japanese forces, but of course in 1943 this was not a possibility, as all efforts were being made to liberate France. Alongside this, on November the 4th of 1943, the Corps Léger d'Intervention was created in Djidjud, French Algeria, consisting of 500 volunteers led by Lieutenant Colonel Paul Huard to reinforce resistance against the Japanese in French Indochina. Force 136 helped drop 40 Jedburgh commandos of the Bureau Central de Renseignement et d'Action from the CLI led by Lieutenant Colonel Paul Huard into northern French Indochina. By 1944, Japan was losing the war and feared an Allied offensive in French Indochina. The Japanese were suspicious of French intentions since the liberation of France in August of 1944. The Japanese began planning a coup d'etat against the French administration of the colony. In the meantime, Charles de Gaulle placed General Eugène Mordaunt as head of all resistance in French Indochina, but Mordaunt was careless and the Kempeitai uncovered the plot against them. In January of 1945, American carriers performed a raid in the South China Sea, and 6 pilots were picked up by French forces and kept hidden in Saigon. Admiral Doku refused to hand over the Americans to General Yutsu Tsuchihashi, prompting the Japanese to act. In 1945, the French Indochinese forces outnumbered the Japanese within the territory with 65,000 men, 48,500 of whom were tirailleurs indochinois led by French officers. The remainder were of the colonial army and 3 French Foreign Legion battalions. Realistically, by March of 1945, 30,000 French troops were fully combat ready, while the IJ's 38th Division had 30,000 troops and would receive an additional 25,000 from China, Burma, and Thailand. In early March, the Japanese envoy in Saigon, Ambassador Sunichi Matsumoto, informed the coup that since an Allied invasion of Indochina was inevitable, Japan wished to put into place a common defense of the colony. Doku tried to play for some more time, prompting Tsuchihashi to deliver an ultimatum to Doku on March the 9th ordering the French to disarm. Doku tried stalling again, prompting Tsuchihashi to order the coup d'etat to initiate, and that evening fighting broke out along the northern frontier, Liaocheng, Haiphong, and Hanoi. Countless French forces resisted, but many were simply arrested, such as the 11th Regiment d'Infanterie Coloniale at the Martin du Palier barracks in Saigon. At Hue, the French resisted for over 19 hours before the Japanese overran their barracks. 300 French forces managed to escape, fleeing to the Achel Valley. Lieutenant General Mordaunt led opposition at the Hanoi garrison, but after hours of combat was forced to surrender, losing 292 men and killing 212 Japanese. Vietnamese nationalists armed by the Allies ambushed the Japanese at Quang Ngai, killing 143 and wounding another 205 before they were overwhelmed. Cochin China and Annam fell with relatively little resistance. In Haiphong, the Japanese attacked the headquarters of the 1st Tonkin Brigade, led by Colonel Henri Lapierre. The Japanese overran his command, trying to force him to order a ceasefire of all the other garrisons in the region, but he refused, forcing the Japanese to take them by force. In Laos and Cambodia, the Japanese took most of the garrisons with little opposition, leading to many French personnel taken prisoner, with some executed. It would be at Lang Song where the Japanese found a real battle. The 22nd IJ Division advanced upon Lang Song, which held old forts built by the French to fend off Chinese invaders. The main fortress was Fort Brielle-de-l'Isle, with its garrison of 4,000 Tonkinese and French foreign legionnaires. The IGA quickly cut the French lines of communication to the forts and sent an invitation to General Émile Lemonnier to a banquet at the IGA 22nd Divisional HQ. General Lemonnier declined the offer, but sent staff in his place who were taken prisoner before the Japanese began to attack the forts with artillery, tanks, and infantry. It took a few days and many casualties for the Japanese to seize the formidable forts. General Lemonnier was taken prisoner and demanded to sign a formal surrender of all forces under his command. He refused, so the Japanese had him dig his own grave beside the resident general, Camille Offel. They asked him at gunpoint again to sign the surrender, but he refused, so they beheaded him. Subsequently, the Japanese beheaded, bayoneted, and shot many POWs afterwards. 544 French were killed in combat, 387 were executed. 1,832 Tonkinese died in combat, 103 were executed as well. The Japanese casualties were in the hundreds. After Langsong fell, the Japanese advanced upon Dongdang, where they fought the 3rd Regiment of Tonkinese Rifles. The French forces resisted for 3 days before they were overwhelmed. At this point, many French forces fled for China, such as General Gabriel Sabatier's Tonkinese Division, who suffered 774 deaths and 283 wounded while fighting their way out of French Indochina. The offensive operation cost the Japanese roughly 1,000 casualties in all, while the French and Tonkinese saw 4,200 deaths and over 15,000 men were captured. Japan urged French Indochina to declare independence, which resulted in the creation of the Empire of Vietnam, the Kingdom of Kampuchea, and the Kingdom of Luang Prabang. France's colonial empire in Southeast Asia had been shattered, and it was the start of the August Revolution.